Hello and welcome to your Newsmax Daily for Tuesday, July 29th, 2025, the 210th day of the year with 155 to go. President Trump has wrapped up his four-day trip to Scotland and is heading back to the White House. More on that in a few minutes. We're going to get right into things with Greg Kelly's extended coverage of last night's deadly shooting in New York City that killed 4 people, including a New York City police officer.
This country, for the past 4 years prior to President Trump, you may remember, was on a war footing, but not against Islamic terrorism, against a phantom known as white supremacy. I can say categorically that this has nothing to do with white supremacy, what we just saw this evening. 6 people killed, including a New York City police officer. But again, the message from the federal, state, and too many local authorities, quite frankly, white supremacy was something we all had to be concerned about. Take a look.
We're confronting the stains of what remains the deep stain on the soul of the nation. Hate and white supremacy. And the violent, deadly insurrection on the Capitol 9 months ago, it was about white supremacy. Terrorism from white supremacy is the most lethal threat to the homeland today. Not ISIS, not Al-Qaeda, white supremacists. Focus on how to deal with the rise of white supremacy. We know now we must confront and defeat political extremism, white supremacy, and domestic terrorism. We've taken steps to acknowledge and address systemic racism and the scourge of white supremacy.
All right, it goes on like this, and we have another where he features the vice president, the Secretary of Homeland Security, going on and on about this #1 threat to American security, white supremacy. I wonder at a moment like this, did all of those ghost stories about America, did they waste the time? I know they had to have wasted the time of America's law enforcement and the intelligence and you name it, because white supremacy is bad, but it's just not much of a thing. I feel like we were lied to about it. Commissioner, did you copy all that?
Yes, most of it. Yeah, I think we were lied to as well. There was no incidents of white supremacists acting out or doing anything of significant nature in the last couple of years. NYPD investigates that sort of thing as well. So it was not a substantive complaint, and it was put out there for, in my judgment, for political reasons. No, this is the threat of the hour, and it's going to remain like this for a while. It's going to put a lot of pressure on our law enforcement agencies, federal, state, local, because people are going to be raised up now, and we're going to see, I think, the precautions that can be taken are unlimited. The NYPD is losing a lot of police officers. They're leaving the department, and they're having great difficulty in hiring their replacements. It appears that young people, men and women, are not as interested as they were in a career in law enforcement, and it's a shame, because it's a great career, but unfortunately, the recruiting efforts have not borne the fruit that it needs.
Okay, well, stay with us at this point. A little bit more on the shooter, and I'm looking at a picture of his, what appears to be a driver's license photo. Let's go ahead and throw that up when we can, please. Well, just show up the, if you don't mind, the security footage, if you would. Rifle-toting New York City shooter identified as Shane Tamura, who killed 5, including a New York City police officer. He is said to be from Nevada. Barged into the 44-story building, which, yes, houses Blackstone and the NFL headquarters, armed with a rifle, firing at about 6:30 p.m.
That's Newsmax host Greg Kelly with former NYPD Commissioner Ray Kelly, who is Greg's father. That was prior to last night's news conference with current Commissioner Jessica Tisch.
The building security camera footage shows the shooter enter the lobby, turn right, and immediately open fire on an NYPD officer. He then shoots a woman who took cover behind a pillar and proceeds through the lobby, spraying it with gunfire.
The shooter is among the dead, having taken his own life. She also said that they learned from Nevada police, which is where he's from, that he has a documented history of mental illness. New York City Mayor Eric Adams spoke about the officer that was killed, 36-year-old Didarul Islam.
He's an immigrant from Bangladesh, and he loved this city. And everyone we spoke with stated he was a person of faith. This never gets easy.
Officer Islam is a father of two. His wife is currently pregnant with their third child, and we'll learn a lot more today. But he was working paid patrol or paid off duty, meaning he was off duty but hired by a company to work security for them through the New York City Police Department. Meaning he was doing extra work to support his family. And guess who else showed up at the late night news conference?
Could that be the notorious Alvin Bragg? Yes, I think it is. Makes his prosecution of President Trump seem even doubly silly, doesn't it? But how about that? Alvin Bragg, the district attorney for New York County, Manhattan, has the nerve to show up at an event like this after wasting everybody's time just last year. It was last year that the resources of the NYPD, of the New York courts, the New York court system, tied up about what? Nothing. A political vendetta. And now he has a real problem on his hands. This is what we need government for. But because of that stunt last year, and the stunt pulled by the Biden administration for 4 years, it's actually, I think, made scenes like this, necessary scenes like this, the aftermath, more likely. And forgive me, but I am personally quite frustrated.
Again, that's Greg Kelly, host of Greg Kelly Reports, 9 p.m. Eastern on Newsmax. The NFL's corporate office is also in that same building. I think Greg mentioned that. And the league released a statement confirming that one of its employees was injured in the attack. Didn't specify specifically if they were shot, but they said they were injured. They're in the hospital in stable condition. Commissioner Roger Goodell also saying that the employees there, NFL employees in that building, will work from home, at least for today. This all happening after another deadly shooting earlier in the day at a casino in Reno, Nevada. Someone opening fire on a group of people outside the casino, killing 3 and wounding several others. Police shot this suspect, who is in critical condition but still alive, unfortunately. And we heard from one of the good guys, retired Marine Derek Perry, who held the Michigan Walmart attacker at bay until police arrived back on Saturday.
I didn't think of anything other than trying to get him away from people and get him isolated and get him to put the knife down. God took over and said, we're going to get you through this. You need to go.
Again, kudos to retired Marine Derek Perry, as well as the other Good Samaritan that jumped in to help there in Michigan. In Cincinnati, police say they have now identified several of the suspects involved in what appear to be racial attacks over the weekend. We talked about that yesterday. As I mentioned, President Trump is headed back to the White House after meeting with UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer yesterday in Scotland, where they discussed trade, more humanitarian aid for Gaza, and moved Russia's ceasefire deadline up to 2 weeks. Before leaving Scotland today, the president attended the grand opening of Trump International Golf Links in Aberdeen.
I look forward to playing it today. We'll play it very quickly, and then I go back to D.C. and we put out fires all over the world.
Newsmax spoke with White House Principal Deputy Press Secretary Harrison Fields.
Harrison, welcome. This meeting follows the recent U.S.-UK trade deal plus the EU deal. But as we know, there's several countries still waiting to come to the negotiating table with the president and with the White House here. Specifically on China, I know Secretary Bessent is meeting there to discuss what could be the future. Are we confident that there could be a deal specifically with China by August 1st?
Well, with President Donald J. Trump as our deal maker in chief, everyone should be very confident that any deal is possible as long as it benefits the American people and puts America first. This is why so many countries have lined up at the front door of the White House demanding almost deals with this country because they want to bet on America again. The last 4 years, no one wanted to take America seriously. That all changed on January 20th at noon when President Donald J. Trump was reelected and re-sworn in as president of the United States. To yesterday's incredible deal with the EU, a monumental, historic deal, the likes of which we haven't seen before, is a testament to this president's ability, and really the entire trade team's ability, to put American workers, American industry, and the country back in the driver's seat to level the playing field once and for all and reestablish a strong working relationship when it comes to trade, economic partnerships, the likes of which we haven't seen before, $600 billion in investment commitments through this EU deal, $750 billion worth of energy commitments in purchasing American energy, and we potentially may even have the final details of the UK deal coming out today after the president met with the Prime Minister of the UK. So many deals, a few months in office, and really we are just getting started.
That's White House Principal Deputy Press Sec Harrison Fields on National Report with Emma Reckenberg and Sean Kreisman. Carl Higbie, host of Frontline, returned from vacation and was fired up, as you would imagine, mostly about the U.S.-EU trade deal.
The EU will now pay us 15% on any goods they import to us. And you know, what we will pay to them? Oh, $0. $0. That means our goods can go into the European market at zero extra cost. Just to clarify, they used to tax our cars at 10%, and they would only get 2% coming into our market. Okay, not exactly a fair deal there. Trump fixed that. Steel and aluminum was as much as 25% if we wanted to sell it in their market. And now all the things that we make here in America will have zero tariffs going to their market, making them more affordable in Europe, which means that we can sell more American products in their markets that are made here in America. Of course, all these European leaders, they're apoplectic of it. French Prime Minister called the EU trade deal a dark day for Europe, describing it as an act of submission and an unbalanced trade deal that favors the U.S. by imposing a 15% tariffs on all EU goods while sparing U.S. imports. Yes, that's the point. Some German economist that I'd never heard of, Holger Schmieding, from some big multinational bank that I also hadn't heard of in Germany, said, complained the deal was much worse than the situation before Trump started his new rounds of trade wars earlier this year. This is asymmetric, allowing Trump a claim to a win. Yeah, it is a win. And it's about time. America has been getting the bad end of trade deals for, I don't know, like the last half century. Of course, all these people who are taking us to the cleaners are very upset about their nation's gravy train ending. But look, you had half the EU throwing a hissy fit over this. But I'm totally fine with that. I don't even like Europe that much. Look, you want access to our economy, Europe? Pay up. The entire European economy combined is less than $20 trillion. Ours is over $30 trillion. America is 45% of the entire planet's GDP. It's about time people start paying to have access to it. That's exactly what Trump has been trying to do, which is funny because in 2008, actually, the U.S. and the EU economies were almost equal. The EU made a bunch of stupid investments in green energy. They stopped investing in conventional energy like drilling for oil and stuff like that. They expanded social programs while accepting millions of unvetted migrants from war-torn countries. Oh, and they also had huge punitive tax structures. You guys want to make up that 15%? Maybe you should drop taxes on your own people. You can't have gasoline cost $7.78 a gallon like it does in the UK today and compete with an American economy where it costs under $3 for the same gallon. Most of the EU has over $3 a gallon just in taxes. And that doesn't even include the 20% VAT tax in places like the UK on top of that. The real crime is not Trump imposing a 15% tariff on you guys. The real crime is that the EU, they have like half Half of the EU's cost to energize its economy, its own economy, is internal tariffs, taxes on their own people. By the way, all those taxes on energy that they don't produce it there. They got to import it, which is why the EU also agreed to purchase $750 billion worth of that energy from us now. We were able to offer it to them at a reduced price of what they were paying for the tariffed and even partially embargoed energy from Russia. Also, we started drilling again, so that helps us export more. Taking away more revenue from Putin, by the way. Tell me again how Trump's tariffs don't work.
Carl Higbie is the host of Frontline, 5 p.m. Eastern on Newsmax. Former Trump attorney Christina Bobb, who now works for Judicial Watch, and Trump Advisory Board member Jason Meister spoke with Katrina Zish and Bob Brooks on American Agenda about Ghislaine Maxwell's conversation with the DOJ and the Epstein case.
The drama continues.
Well, I think it's appropriate to at least question her and try to look into this a little bit more. What the American people are tired of is this two-tier system of justice where you have a woman convicted of horrible sex crimes, many against children, and yet there are no accomplices, there are no perpetrators. You have thousands of victims, according to the file, and yet nobody is the perpetrator besides her who coordinated all of this. So I think that's a big head scratcher saying, wait a minute, are the rich and powerful getting away with something that, you know, the rest of us, I'm still being prosecuted in the state of Arizona for a crime that never occurred. So we have to face the wrath of the justice system while the rich and powerful get away with it. So that's the concern that needs to be quelled, whether it's through opening a file or putting stuff out there or prosecuting maybe another case, maybe the Obama case, whatever it is, the Department of Justice, and I think they're moving in the right direction, needs to allow the American people to feel that there are not two tiers of justice and that the rich and powerful are held accountable.
And I think they're trying to make progress, the administration, on getting those files released, like the grand jury reports, the documents, things like that. Jason, what I'm hung up on is, just going back on the thousands of victims, like we heard from House Speaker Mike Johnson, is how much could you trust Ghislaine Maxwell at this point, who's facing a 20-year sentence? She obviously wants to get out of prison. I have a hard time wrapping my head around that.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think that it would be hard to give any kind of real sincere trust in what she has to say. But we've known Jeffrey Epstein's crimes for decades. And remember, it was President Trump and his Department of Justice that arrested Jeffrey Epstein back in 2019. He killed himself in a jail cell because President Trump had him arrested. So the idea that Trump is somehow implicated in this, and the fact that Joe Biden and Merrick Garland had authority over these documents for 4 years and wouldn't release these, absurd. Yes. And then I have to say that the timing of the way the media is handling the Epstein files, just in advance of the Russiagate hoax and the declassification of all these documents that are coming out, I think is very peculiar, to say at a minimum. And I think they're trying to sow doubt in the MAGA base and create a civil war over this when really there really isn't much to be arguing about. I think that the Trump administration and their communications around this could be better. I think they should do a press conference and be more transparent to the American people. I think that would go a long way. But this is more of a communications issue than anything else, and I think that can be handled very easily.
Christina, we're almost out of time, but I want to bring you back in. I agree with you. It's kind of like, okay, well, obviously these crimes were not simply committed alone by Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. Obviously, there were other people who were involved with these underage women. And the question, I guess, is who are they and what are they going to do as a result of their obvious guilt? And so do you think there is any way to find out who those people are? They may be very likely people we've never heard of or very people ever know. But why? Why have they been protected?
Well, that's a great question. That's the question that has everyone up in arms, is why are they being protected? I think the Department of Justice is doing the right thing by asking Ghislaine Maxwell. And no one is expecting that DOJ is going to take her word as gospel and just say, oh, well, this is what happened. No, it's an investigation, right? You take what she says, you see if you can verify it with other information, you conduct an investigation, a real investigation, and see if there's anything there. And it might be that there is or there isn't, or maybe the information is so corrupted at this point that it's not beyond a reasonable doubt, and so you can't pursue it. I mean, there's a lot of things that can happen, but they need to continue down this road and at least make an effort to see if they can figure that out.
Former Trump attorney Christina Bobb and Trump advisory board member Jason Meister, who said what I've been saying all along. The Trump administration, AG Bondi, the FBI, they still need to do a press conference. It would have been a lot better if they did it last week or even the week before, but we still need a press conference, some explanations, some transparency. And one of the architects of Project 2025, you remember that, right? His name is Paul Dans. He announced that he's launching a Republican primary challenge to Senator Lindsey Graham in South Carolina. And former North Carolina Democratic Governor Roy Cooper is going to run for Thom Tillis's Republican seat. Cooper's much more of a moderate Democrat. He's not a progressive. You may remember last week, President Trump picked RNC Chair Michael Whatley as his candidate to fill North Carolina's open Senate seat after his daughter-in-law, Laura Trump, said she would not run. Whatley is a North Carolina native, like Laura Trump. He served as the head of North Carolina's Republican Party before President Trump selected him as chairman of the Republican National Committee. And millions of dollars in donations are reportedly pouring into PBS and NPR since the rescissions package was passed last week, cutting more than $1 billion of government funding for public broadcasting. The Contributor Development Partnership, which is something that analyzes media fundraising, told the New York Times that more than 120,000 donors have pledged more than $20 million in funding since it became clear that the funding cuts would be enacted by Congress. Time will tell if it's an initial reaction or if donor dollars will keep pouring in. And it's a big day on the food calendar. # National Lasagna Day. Probably in my top 4 favorite Italian dishes. It's a toss-up between lasagna and ravioli. Today is also National Chicken Wing Day. Say less, which means deals and freebies all over the place. On Wall Street, the stock market started the day in the green, building on yesterday's modest gains that again drove the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ to yet another record high. I mentioned yesterday the highlights of the week on Wall Street is more marquee earnings. This morning, Boeing had positive earnings. Stock is on the rise. United Healthcare and Spotify had disappointing earnings. Both of those stocks are moving lower. We have a Federal Reserve meeting coming up, a handful of economic reports, and then on Friday, the big July jobs report as well. So the president is expected back at the White House about 7:30 tonight. He will most likely make some comments getting off Air Force One or Marine One. And there will be another press conference or multiple press conferences out of New York City as well. So keep up with all of the day's news and breaking developments on Newsmax, N2, and at Newsmax.com. It all starts each and every morning with Wake Up America. I'm Tony Marino. Thank you, as always, for listening. Continue to share the Newsmax Daily with friends, family, and really anyone. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday. Pay attention and keep on fighting the good fight.
News breaks every minute, every day. You need the app, the Newsmax app. Find it free on your smartphone store. Then watch us anytime, anywhere.
What? Information. Truth. Is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.